I hadn't expected Arthur to come home early from college. Not this weekend, not unannounced, and definitely not in the middle of the night. But when I woke to the sound of my bedroom door creaking open and saw his silhouette in the low amber, light spilling from the hallway, something in me stirred. Something I didn't have a name for. Dad. His voice was soft, careful. The guest bed still isn't fixed. Mind if I crash in here tonight? I could have said no. I should have. Maybe. But instead, I shifted over without a word and patted the side of the bed like it was nothing. Like we were still in that old rhythm we had before he left. Before... He grew older, taller, broader in the shoulders, and started carrying a different kind of weight behind his eyes. I heard the shuffle of his bare feet on the hardwood as he came closer. He still walked like he used to, deliberate but quiet, like he didn't want to disturb the world too much. The bed dipped beneath his weight, the mattress creaking slightly as he settled beside me. My body was too aware of his nearness, the heat of him, the slow exhale he released as he laid back and stared at the ceiling. I did the same. Couldn't sleep? I asked, keeping my voice low. Outside, the wind rustled against the windows, a late spring storm beginning to swell somewhere in the trees. Just too much on my mind, he murmured. There was something different in his tone. Not quite heavy, not sad either, but reflective, tender in a way that made me ache a little. He used to tell me everything. From scraped knees to school crushes, I was the one he always ran to. But time, as it always does, shifted things. We'd become strangers in familiar skin. I miss this, he said after a long silence. This? Just being home. Us. His words settled in my chest like warm water, spreading slow and deep. I didn't answer right away. I couldn't. I was too busy noticing the way his arm brushed mine when he turned, the way the quiet wrapped around us like a blanket pulled tight against the storm building outside. And in that quiet, I realized this night wasn't just a return. It was the beginning of something neither of us had the words for yet. Arthur always used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms when he was younger. He said the sound of rain on the windows scared him, but I think he just liked the way I'd pull the covers over us and hum the old Fleetwood Mac songs his mom never played anymore. Now he was 20, taller than me, with shoulders broad enough to fill a doorway. But in that moment, lying beside me again, it was like no time had passed. Except everything had. Remember that camping trip to Pine Lake? I asked, staring at the ceiling, letting my voice break the silence. Arthur chuckled quietly. The one where the tent collapsed on us and you tried to act like it was part of the adventure? You were 12 and terrified, I said, smiling. And you told me raccoons never attack anyone who's singing Bee Gees, he shot back, the grin evident in his voice. I turned toward him slightly, just enough to see the curve of his smile in the dark. Worked, didn't it? He laughed, and the sound wrapped around me like something familiar and safe. Only because your falsetto scared me more than the raccoons. I swatted at his arm playfully and he nudged me back. The mattress shifted again, and his leg brushed mine beneath the sheets, bare skin against bare skin. I didn't move. Neither did he. We used to be inseparable. Fishing on weekends, fixing up the old bike in the garage, watching terrible 80s, action movies with microwaved popcorn and root beer floats. He was the one person who never made me feel like I had to explain myself, until he left for college. After that, the silences grew. Our texts turned into quick updates, our calls shorter. But tonight felt like a thread reconnecting, slowly weaving us back to something we both missed but hadn't said out loud. You okay being back? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Yeah, it's just weird. Everything looks the same, but it doesn't feel the same. I know what you mean. Arthur turned his head to look at me, and for a second, our eyes met in the dark. I could barely make out his features in the faint glow from the window, but his gaze held mine longer than I expected. Long enough for my chest to tighten with something I hadn't wanted to name. "I keep expecting to feel like a kid again when I come home," he said. "But it's like, I'm not sure who I'm supposed to be here anymore." "You're still my Arthur," I said softly. He looked away then, but not before I saw something flicker in his eyes. Something unspoken. The same something I felt whenever our arms touched, whenever his voice softened around my name. A sudden gust of wind slammed against the house, followed by a distant crack of thunder. The lights flickered, then held steady. Arthur glanced toward the window. "If the power goes out again, I'm blaming you," he said, reaching for the blanket and tugging it up around his shoulders. I smirked. "You're the one who short-circuited the kitchen with that old espresso machine you insisted on installing." "That was for your benefit, by the way," he muttered, curling closer under the blanket. There was barely a foot between us now. His elbow brushed my side. I could feel the warmth of him, his slow, even breathing. And then it happened. A subtle shift. His hand resting between us moved slightly. His pinky finger grazed mine. Not deliberate, not forced, but it stayed there. I didn't pull away, neither did he. The storm hit harder than expected. One moment we were joking about power outages, and the next, the lights cut out entirely. The house fell into darkness, save for the pale blue flashes of lightning tearing across the sky. Arthur sat up in bed, the blanket falling to his waist, casting shadows over the lean lines of his torso. He looked toward the window, the thunder rumbling just behind his breath. "Well," he muttered, "there goes the espresso machine." I laughed, though my voice sounded thinner than I wanted it to. "I told you it was cursed." He swung his legs over the side of the bed, his bare feet finding the floor. I watched as he moved toward the door, using his phone's flashlight to scan the hallway. The warm glow lit the edges of his jawline, the sharp rise of his cheekbones. He looked older in that light, grown. "I'll check the breaker," he said. "I'll come with you." He didn't argue. We walked quietly together, our footsteps muffled against the wooden floors. The only sounds the storm outside and the soft buzz of his phone. In the basement, the air was cooler, the scent of damp concrete hanging low. Arthur crouched beside the breaker panel while I stood behind him, arms crossed, trying not to stare at the slope of his back beneath his thin t-shirt. "This is probably a bad time to tell you I never figured out how to fix the panel after the last outage," he said. Rolled my eyes, smiling despite myself. "You really didn't inherit the handyman gene, did you?" He glanced over his shoulder, his smile crooked. "Nope, just your stubbornness." The power didn't come back. After several failed attempts and a few choice swear words on Arthur's part, we gave up and headed upstairs. The house was quiet again, the storm starting to ease, leaving a kind of heavy stillness in its wake. But the temperature had dropped. "Great," Arthur muttered as he rubbed his arms. "Now it's freezing." "You want me to find you another blanket?" I asked. "Only if it comes with central heating." I paused. "You can stay here again. I mean, if it's warmer." Arthur hesitated for a second, then nodded. "Yeah, okay, if you're sure." We returned to the bed, and this time when he slipped under the covers, he didn't keep much space between us. His arm brushed mine, his thigh grazing my leg beneath the sheets. The darkness made it worse. Or maybe it made it easier. I couldn't see his expression, but I could feel him. Every breath, every movement. "You always did run cold," I said, trying to keep the tone light. "And you always ran hot," he replied. Then added quietly, "Still do." I swallowed. That shouldn't have felt like a compliment, but it did. Something about the way he said it, the softness of his voice. It wrapped around something in me I thought I'd buried a long time ago. We lay there, still, the air growing denser by the minute. I could feel his breathing slowing. I wasn't sure if he was falling asleep or simply pretending. I wasn't even sure what I wanted him to be doing. My heart thudded too loud in my chest, betraying my stillness. I turned my head toward him. "Arthur?" He didn't move. I could see the faint outline of his face now, barely lit by the storm-dimmed night through the window. His eyes were open. He wasn't sleeping. "I'm glad you came home." His lips curved slightly. "Me too." "I've missed this," I added, before I could stop myself. He didn't reply right away, but when he did, his voice was lower. "Yeah, I've missed you." The silence that followed should have been comforting. Instead, it pulsed, heavy, intimate. My fingers were near his under the blanket, barely an inch apart. And then he did it. Just a small thing. His fingers shifted until they brushed mine again, soft, testing. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. I should have said something. Should have drawn a line. But all I could think about was how long it had been since someone touched me like that. How good it felt not to be alone in that dark room, in that quiet ache. He turned slightly toward me. "Can I ask something?" "Of course." "Why did things feel weird earlier, when we were lying here before?" I hesitated. "Weird how?" "Don't know," he said. "Just not like when I was a kid. Not bad. Just different." I knew exactly what he meant. "Because we're not the same anymore," I said softly. "You're not a boy anymore, Arthur, and I'm not used to—" This? He asked, and his hand shifted again, this time not brushing mine, but resting on it. My breath caught. His fingers curled slightly around mine, and I didn't move. I couldn't. "I don't know what this is," I admitted. "Me neither," he whispered. The space between us was gone now. His face was inches from mine, his breath warm. My heart pounded so hard I was sure he could feel it through the mattress. "I'm scared," I said. "Yeah," he breathed. "Me too." But neither of us moved away. For a long time we didn't say anything. Arthur's hand stayed over mine beneath the covers, his palm warm and steady, his thumb brushing slowly across the side of my finger like it meant something. But neither of us dared name it yet. My body had gone tense with uncertainty, but there was a softness to the moment too, like we were both afraid of breaking it. Afraid of what might happen if one of us spoke too soon. Or not at all. His breathing had slowed, but I could feel the way his chest rose unevenly, like he was struggling against something inside himself. I understood that. God, I did. Because my own thoughts had twisted so tight, they were choking the space between us. "I'm not sure what we're doing," I whispered, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Arthur shifted. I felt the mattress dip slightly as he turned more fully toward me. "Neither am I. But it feels like—" I swallowed hard. Like we're standing at the edge of something. A beat passed, then another, and then, softly, "Yeah, it really does." I turned to face him. The shadows on his face flickered in the faint stormlight, his hair tousled against the pillow, his expression unreadable. But his eyes held mine. Open. Searching. "I keep thinking," I began slowly, "that this shouldn't feel the way." "It does," he nodded. "Me too. But it does." "Why now?" I asked, almost more to myself than to him. "Why tonight? We've been alone before. We've shared a bed before." "Because I'm different," he said. "And so are you." His voice trembled slightly, like the words had weight he wasn't sure he could hold. "And because maybe I've been thinking about this longer than I want to admit." My breath caught. I wasn't ready for that. And yet, I was. "You've been thinking about this?" I asked, voice barely audible. Arthur didn't blink. Since winter break? Maybe before that? I don't know. I'd catch myself looking at you longer than I should, wondering why being around you made me feel more like myself than anyone else ever has. I didn't know what to say. The room was spinning quietly, and I wasn't sure if it was the storm or just him. I know it's not what I'm supposed to feel, he added, but I also know I trust you more than anyone, that when I'm around you, I don't have to hide. His voice cracked, just slightly, and I'm so tired of hiding. I reached up without thinking, my hand finding his cheek, my thumb grazing just beneath his eye. His skin was warm. He didn't pull away. You don't have to, I whispered. Not with me. He leaned into my touch, and something in me folded. All the fear, the guilt, the doubt, it didn't vanish. But it softened. It made space for something else. I was scared, I said, because I thought if I let myself feel this, whatever this is, it would mean everything had to change, that it would ruin what we have. But maybe it's the opposite, Arthur said quietly. Maybe it's not the end of something. Maybe it's the beginning. The words settled between us like a slow wave soaking into the silence. I looked at him, really looked, and saw someone not just older, not just changed, but someone brave. Someone who was risking something just by speaking the truth aloud. I don't want to pretend, I said finally. Not anymore. He exhaled then, like he'd been holding his breath for days. His forehead leaned forward until it touched mine. It was a small thing, barely a movement, but it felt like a bridge being built in the dark. I could smell the faint scent of his shampoo, citrus and cedar. His lashes brushed the skin above my cheek. My heart beat wildly, but I didn't pull away. You're not just my son, I whispered. You're Arthur. You're the person I've missed every day since you left. And I don't know what this makes me or what it means, but I know I don't want to lose this again. He nodded slowly, like he was soaking in every word. Then don't. His hand slid up to rest against my ribs, tentative and trembling, like he was waiting for permission. I didn't stop him. Instead, I reached for him too, my hand moving to the back of his neck, pulling him closer. Not because I was sure, but because I wanted to be. And then, without words, his lips found mine. It was cautious at first, soft and unsure. A question, not a statement. But I answered with a kiss of my own, slow and searching. Our mouths barely moved, just the faintest brush of breath and warmth and understanding. And yet it was everything. He kissed me again, a little deeper this time, his hand tightening slightly on my side. I pulled him closer, my fingers buried in his hair, anchoring him to me like he might disappear if I let go. When we finally parted, our foreheads touched again, both of us breathing harder, our cheeks flushed with more than just heat. Is this real? He asked, voice unsteady. I think it's been real for a long time, I said. We just weren't ready to say it. I've never felt like this before, he admitted. Not with anyone. My heart ached, not with pain, but with something too big for words. Me neither. A beat of silence passed. Then, what now? He asked. I didn't have an answer. Not yet. But I knew one thing for sure. We don't rush it, I said. We don't hide. We just stay here. For now. Arthur nodded, his hand still resting gently against me. Okay. And then he leaned in again. Not for a kiss this time, but to wrap his arms around me and pull me close. I let him. I held him. And in that closeness, in the stillness that followed, it didn't feel wrong. It felt like finally breathing after holding my breath for years. I don't know how long we lay there. Arthur's head resting against my chest, his fingers gently tracing idle shapes along my side beneath the blanket. The storm had passed sometime in the night, leaving only a quiet dripping sound outside, like the world was catching its breath too. My arm was wrapped around his back, not tightly, just enough to keep him there. The air between us felt changed. Not tense, not uncertain, just full. Full of everything we'd been too scared to say for too long. He spoke first, voice muffled against my shirt. Is it weird that I don't feel scared anymore? A little, I admitted. But also, not at all. Arthur shifted, lifting his head slightly so he could see me. His hair was sticking up on one side, and the corner of his mouth tugged into a sleepy grin. You snore, by the way, I scoffed. I do not. You absolutely do, like a muffled bear in a log cabin. Remind me why I let you into my bed again? He smirked, then leaned up and kissed my cheek. So casual, so quick, and yet it lit a slow fire under my skin. Because you missed me. Admit it. I rolled my eyes, but my smile gave me away. Yeah, I murmured. I missed you more than I knew how to say. His smile faded into something softer, more serious. I used to lie awake at school sometimes. Not because I was homesick exactly, but because I missed this, you, the way I never had to pretend when I was around you. You never have to, I said, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. No matter what happens next. Arthur exhaled slowly. That's the part I keep thinking about. What happens next? I nodded. We don't have to figure it all out tonight. But we can talk about it, right? He asked, his tone tentative. Of course. He sat up a little more, resting his chin on my chest now, eyes locked on mine. I don't want this to be a one-night thing. I don't want to wake up tomorrow and act like it didn't happen. It's not going to be that, I promised. But we have to be careful. Take it slow. Right, he said, nodding. I need to know you're in this with me. I reached up and cupped the side of his face, my thumb brushing his jaw. I'm here. I'm with you. Whatever we decide this is, I want to explore it. Together. He leaned into my touch, eyes fluttering shut for a second. Okay. Yeah. That's all I needed to hear. We lay like that for a while, legs tangled, his hand resting just over my heart like he was still making sure it was real. When the silence stretched again, it wasn't uncomfortable. It was peaceful. Do you think Mom suspects anything? He asked suddenly. I blinked. What? She's always had this weird sixth sense for when something's different, even if we don't say it. I groaned softly. Well, let's not give her a reason to investigate just yet. Arthur grinned again. So, no kissing in the kitchen? Definitely not. Or stealing your hoodies when I go back to school. I mean, that's less suspicious, but still rude. He laughed, and then he kissed me again. Softly, gently, without hesitation. You're kind of terrible at setting boundaries, you know that? I'm learning, I said, kissing him back. Slowly, very slowly. The next morning, sunlight poured through the curtains like the night had never happened. The storm was gone, and the sky had turned that crisp shade of blue that only comes after everything's been washed clean. I woke to find Arthur still. Beside me, one arm tucked under the pillow, the other draped across my waist like he'd fallen asleep mid-reach. His breathing was soft, steady, and for a moment, I didn't move. I just looked at him, the way his mouth curved slightly, even in sleep, the way his hair flopped across his forehead, the way his fingers had curled gently into the fabric of my t-shirt, like he was still holding on. And I let him, because it wasn't a mistake. Last night had been a beginning. When he finally stirred, blinking sleep from his eyes, the first thing he did was smile, sleepy and unguarded. "Morning," he said, voice hoarse. "Morning," I echoed. He didn't pull away. He didn't rush to sit up or make excuses. Instead, he laid his head back down on my chest and let out a long breath. "I thought I'd wake up panicking," he admitted. "But I feel calm. Is that weird?" "No," I said, stroking my hand slowly down his back. "Not weird at all." He was quiet for a beat, then lifted his head again, propping himself up on one elbow. "So, what do we tell people?" I gave a soft laugh. "Maybe let's not start with people. Maybe let's just start with us." Arthur tilted his head, considering that, then nodded. "Us sounds good." He leaned over the side of the bed, grabbing something from the floor. When he sat back up, he held out my old gray hoodie, the one he always stole when he was younger, and insisted smelled like home. "Can I take this back with me?" he asked, only half joking. "Do I have a choice?" I teased. "Nope." He grinned, and I reached out to zip the hoodie up halfway for him, letting my hand linger against his chest before tugging the fabric into place. It was such a small thing, but it felt like a promise. A quiet one. He reached into the hoodie pocket and pulled out something small, an old movie stub, faded and crumpled, but I knew exactly what it was from. "That night we saw Close Encounters, remember?" he said. "I found this tucked in the corner of your desk drawer before I left for school. I kept it." I looked at him, startled. "Why?" "Because it reminded me that we always had something real, something just ours." My chest tightened. I took the stub from him gently, then reached for the drawer in my nightstand and pulled out a folded note. His handwriting. Sloppy. Emotional. The one he left the day he moved out for college. "I kept this too," I said. "Read it more times than I'll ever admit." Arthur smiled like that meant more than anything I could have said. We didn't need big declarations. We had moments like this. And those were more than enough. "Come with me next weekend?" he asked suddenly. I blinked. "Where?" "Back to campus. Just for a day or two. I want to show you my favorite coffee spot. Introduce you to my world." "You sure?" He nodded. "If we're doing this, I don't want to keep it hidden. Not from the people who matter." I reached out and took his hand, our fingers tangling without hesitation. "Then yeah," I said. "I'd love that." The warmth that bloomed in his expression was instant, radiant. And as we sat there on the edge of the bed, fingers locked, sunlight warming the room around us, I knew this wasn't a passing moment. It was a beginning. No maps, no rules. Just two people learning how to walk toward each other, one step at a time, together, always together.